Our guest today on Meinl Radio is Austin Archey, a recent addition to our Meinl Cymbals family. Austin is best known as the drummer for the New Jersey deathcore band Lorna Shore. Austin has been with the band for quite a number of years now, joining at an early age and owning his skill sets as a vicious metal drummer along the way. We recently had Austin here in Nashville to film video content with us, and I have to say that it was a real joy to have him and his longtime friend and drum tech, Dan Stankus, here in town for a day of hard-focused work and multiple belly laughs. Austin is just one of those guys that says a word a certain way and it'll make you bust out laughing. He's hilarious and sweet and kind and easygoing and basically all of the attributes that one would hope for in an artist. He's also a metal ripper on the drums, with double bass chops and blast beats that seem to defy the laws of physics. Currently, Lorna Shore is riding the crest of a wave of popularity that's anything but an overnight success. So every trapping that goes along with their hard-fought-for spoils is rightfully being enjoyed by Austin right now. I sat down to chat with him by phone after his trip to Nashville. I suppose I could have tried cramming in this podcast while he was here, but it was good to get a little perspective first by getting our first bit of hang time in. I knew that would make me much more in the loop for this podcast. What follows is a conversation with a guy who's one of the happier campers you could meet. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. On to the podcast. I'd like to welcome everybody in to the Meinl Radio podcast. Today we've got awesome dude number one, Austin Archey, at 10:36 a.m. New Jersey time, 9:36 a.m. Central time, down here in Nashville. And dude, Austin, thank you so much for being here, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Bright and early. We're getting it started.
And bright and early was your request, which not to like pigeonhole or stereotype, but that kind of surprised me with like a musician was telling me, hey man, the earlier the better. Now, why is the earlier the better?
Typically because I just get carried away in the day. So if we did 3 p.m., I'm going to be running around until 2:58 and then be like, oh, I got to get myself sorted and get over there because the day takes me away. And also we're preparing for a show, so I got rehearsal in a little bit. So I figured bright and early, start the day, get the coffee going, and I don't know. It sounds like a good way to start the day, honestly.
Yeah, awesome. Well, so you said you've got your show to prepare for it, and this is the Christmas show you guys do?
Yeah, this is actually the first year we're actually doing our own Christmas show. We played the August Burns Red, Christmas Burns Red show last year, and it was just such a good time, and I just seen how they treated it, and we were like, I think that just sounds like something we want to do. I mean, we all love Christmas. You know, we have our families that want to come to shows sometimes, and they're, you know, this is the most spoon-fed, least metal show that any of them could attend in a nice venue, you know, and it's also before Christmas, which I love because everyone's still in the spirit of Christmas. You know, last year we did that show, and it was like a couple days after, and it was cool and all, but everyone got their presents already. Everyone was, you know, I think, not coming out of the Christmas spirit, but I think beforehand, just since we had control over it, it just felt like a good way to end the year, you know, just do something fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I have to say, I really, really enjoyed your visit to Nashville recently to film videos with Meinl, and I think that we can both safely say how much fun that was. One thing that I was reminded of when you were here is just how absolutely sweethearted and kind that people that are into metal are. And it's such a funny dichotomy between how a lot of metal fans and musicians look and then how they act. So on the outside, there's this scary tattoo, ripped clothing, dark imagery with death and destruction thing, and maybe if you're lucky, a little bit of leather. And then on the inside, it's like the most caring and kind-hearted person. And so would you say that the external trappings are a sort of coat of armor to shield all of the sensitive metalheads from the outside world?
Oh, yeah, everyone's hiding their old soft side, you know, putting up a big front. I mean, there are some guys that are really about it, and you'll know. You'll know when they're about it, but I think the newer generation of metalheads that aren't, you know, soaked up in the, I don't know, you got to get attention from being kind of crazy, you know, like I notice everyone I tour with in the metal world, as much as intimidating they could be before I meet them, everyone's a sweetheart. Everyone's, you know, very welcoming, and we're all kind of like the misfits of this world, and I think we all take care of each other, and I think metal has just come out of that cool guy, dark world to, I want it to be accessible. I want people to know that, we're nice people, and I don't want I don't want some young fan to be influenced by anything but something positive when they, come to me, talk to me, or listen to our music. I think there's a bigger goal nowadays with at least Lorna Shore, and just myself in my own personal journey as an artist. I appreciate that you had a great time, and I had a great time too. But that's just it. I don't want to. I want to be accessible. I want to be real. I'm only being myself. My mother raised me right. I got a great family. I got great people around me, and I like to keep it that way. I don't want to shoo people off by walking around with a spiked jacket and they can't give me a hug, or else they're gonna get maybe they're gonna lose an eye if I wear that jacket.
Yeah, yeah, that's funny. So now it led me to the thought, like, okay, so what was the very first? What was your very first brush with metal where you were like, dude? And maybe the first time you weren't like, dude, but maybe it was the second or third time. But what was the first time that you really remember like having some metal band placed in front of you?
I can remember very vividly. I mean, as far as like metal in general, I grew up in a pretty metalhead family. My father, when you're young in my generation, I'm listening to the Backstreet Boys. I'm listening to Britney Spears. I'm listening to Ricky Martin because that's on MTV. And then I remember my father, I'd see him on the weekends. He'd pick me up. We'd go to a local record store that just closed down not too recently, but it was legendary, called Vintage Vinyl. And we'd go in there. My dad would just, buy 10, 15, 20 CDs, whatever. And, I think it was, Slayer reissued all their records, like remastered and put them on CD. And my dad bought them all and immediately put on, Rain and Blood. And that was kind of when it tapped in. And I was like, okay, like, I'm just a young little, like I see online, like people showing people our music. It's like you're just like kind of young and you hear this aggressive music and something weird happens when you're that young and you hear something aggressive. You're almost like you want to let out your little baby angst in the back seat and start rocking out and being cool. And I think the first band that I discovered on my own was it's actually a mix. It was probably between Slipknot and Cold Chamber. Slipknot I found on my own just because there was like one of those back in the day. You had you could it was like a little paper thing on top of a little like looked like a bingo box or something, where you write your name and you try and win a free whatever, and you write your name in and you pop it in. But it was for Slipknot self-titled to win like a pair of free tickets or something. And I just seen how they looked, with the masks, and something just drew me to it. And, that was cool. And then I had a kid down the block from me who showed me Cold Chamber, I was like connecting with neighborhood kids. And, he was a bit older, and he was like, we walked over to the record store near me, and then, we bought the Cold Chamber self-titled. And, yeah, from there it was kind of history. I just started wearing the baggy jeans. I was a little new metal kid, honestly. I loved all the new metal stuff, Static X, System of a Down, that all kind of Seven Dust. It all just kind of came together, and I just went down that path, didn't look back. And, you're very aggressive about it when you're young. You're like, I like this, and anything that isn't this, sucks. So as I've gotten older, I've learned to appreciate some of those bands that existed back then that weren't as heavy. But I mean, I was definitely a full-blown metalhead walking into school with my Hatebreed t-shirt thinking I'm the toughest little fifth grader you've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, your Hatebreed shirt was your coat of armor back then.
Oh yeah, no one could mess with me. And if they did, I was gonna go home and listen to that music and just picture myself beating them in kickball or something. I don't know.
That's awesome. So once you got into like your own stuff, Slipknot and System of a Down, all that, did your dad's Slayer albums seem kind of like dad rock to you at that time?
Not the Slayer stuff, but my dad showed me, bands like my dad loved Morphine. It was like a saxophone type metal group, and some more like singing metal stuff. But like anyone that was kind of yelling and and it's funny because Slayer back then, I'm like, yo, this is the heaviest thing I ever heard. But the guy's not like really screaming. It's not like Deicide, which were bands that existed at that same time, or Dying Fetus.
Okay, man, you got to stop here because you literally are like quoting me to me. So, my apologies to anybody on this podcast that has heard me say this before, but I'm going to bring it up now because I have this kind of like sort of, how there's things like Murphy's Law and whatnot. Well, I don't even know what to call this. I call it my Rain and Blood Law. So, I mean, that's generally what I have called it. So basically, when I was a kid and I bought Rain and Blood, I mean, I bought it like right when it came out, and I heard it and I went, dude, nothing will ever get heavier, faster, or more evil than this. And then about 5 years later, Deicide's Legion came out, and I got that, and I was like, nothing will ever get faster, heavier, or more evil than this. And it just kept going with metal that way. Like you thought Deicide was sinister. I mean, dude, it just kept, the ante kept getting upped. And I feel like that's the way the whole world works in general. Like, back in the day, somebody was probably like, man, cereal will never get more sugary than Lucky Charms. And then one day, like, Cookie Crisp shows up, and you're like, oh my God, this is the most sugar bomb cereal of all time. It just keeps going.
It's gluttonous behavior.
I mean, and the same thing, and, not to get deep here, but the same thing could be said of, like, I don't know, politics. There's some former leader, president that people thought was a complete worthless president at the time, and it was terrible and was the Antichrist. And then you go back, time buffs a memory. 20 years later, you're like, well, that guy was a nice man, And so, like, whoever everybody's current villains are right now, people look back in 20 years and might be like, oh, he was okay. Remember when we had him? God, that was back when we had such a statesman. It's like, it's weird to think about, but yeah, the Slayer Rain and Blood rule.
Yeah, no, you find, and I think that's like where Lorna Shore is at now. It's just, there's been many extreme bands, but I've always wanted to the threshold just wasn't getting pushed as far as like, I love Tech Death and like the Faceless and everyone, I'm gonna drop the Necrophagus bomb. We're all still waiting on that album, but
it's gonna be a while.
It's gonna be a while. Yeah. But it's like, you hear stuff like that, and you're like, all right, like, the moment I heard Necrophag, just, like, everything seems slow, So it's like, how do we push that? Oh, you find Deicide, how do we make it heavier? And, it all started, and it's like, Black Sabbath was, like, the most satanic heavy band at some point in history, and then, God, we got Behemoth now. So, like, it's like, the threshold always gets pushed, and I think that's why I've ended up playing 280 BPM because I don't know. That's what the future calls for, apparently. And then now we have Archspire. I don't know if you're familiar with the band. They play 320, 340, gravity blast, crazy pots and pans fills. It's out of this world. Crazy stuff. So how does the human body get, like, is there going to be a kid in even 5 years that's playing 400 BPM and then I seem slow? Probably. It's probably gonna Lorna Shore. These new guys are playing faster and heavier. Like that's just how the world works. It definitely is, and it's. I'm scared for the future drummers, but it's my fault. It's my fault. I had to play all fast, and I am. I got to play so damn fast all the time that everyone's like, I want to play faster than that guy. It is. Just judging by history, it is going to happen, and I'm here for it. I'll still listen. It'll be great. Maybe I'll be that old guy like, it's too fast. It's too heavy. I'm not into it. And then I'll probably evolve into whatever everyone evolves to, and I just want something nice and slow that I can listen to on my porch in New Jersey somewhere, because I'll probably live and die here, because that's what people from New Jersey do.
I mean, dude, and there's a beauty in finding something slow that you want to sit and listen to on your porch. I mean, you can't be a young metalhead forever that's like just grinding out crazy fast stuff. So one day Lorna Shore could be dad rock, is what you're saying.
I would love that just to pave the way and pay homage to my heroes. Probably not anytime soon, unfortunately. I'm still only 28 years old, and I got some speed left in me, but it takes a toll on the body. It definitely does. I'm seeing that more than ever now. It's funny, like when I talk to my buddies that I've been touring with for probably the last 10 years, it's like, man, like this is starting to hurt. It's not how it used to be, and we're all taking care of ourselves even more, and it's harder. Like it's a lot at stake, when I had my injury and I reached out to drummers, just to get perspective. Everyone's got problems, Like when I talked to Trey Williams from Dying Fetus recently, he was like, "Oh, dude, I'm in pain every day. I got sciatic problems. I got to stretch. I got to do this. I'm in pain every day." I'm like, "Dude, you are like in your late 30s, early 40s. I don't know what age Trey is, but it's like, and you're playing just as crazy as I am." So it kind of gave me some hope, but also it was like, damn, maybe we could drop at 20 BPM before I become someone that can't operate and have limited mobility just because I want to rip blast beats the rest of my life.
Yeah, no, so this brings me to something I wanted to ask you about. Like, you've been in Lorna Shore for 10 years now, and it seems like you guys are riding at its highest level of musical success yet. And recently, you did suffer some pretty serious back issues while on the road, and crazy enough, your bass player filled in for you, which still, I'm like, golly. and so I know you're not an old fart by any stretch of the imagination. Like you said, you're only 28. But have you ever tried to peer into your crystal ball, and how long do you see yourself being physically able to maintain a life of not only playing the physically demanding music, but also touring behind it?
Yeah, I mean, when I was down bad, laying in my bed and couldn't move, for weeks, I didn't know how much. In my mind, I was like, I can't do it this another day. And luckily, I went on another tour. I came down and did these videos. I'm feeling very good. I think it just is it's a big personal goal and journey to take care of myself, to be able to operate on this level. That's my duty and my responsibility. I signed up for this, so I can't not take care of myself. But it's a timeline. I mean, I could only hope that for another 10 years, I could play some of these older songs and even the ones that just came out that are very fast and very quick. Because it's like, you see Metallica, and, Lars is up there. He's doing his thing. But am I going to be able to 280 BPM blast beat when I'm, pushing 50? I mean, maybe. Maybe there's going to be a robot limb that we can hook up to a MIDI cable that's just going to smack my snare for me when it's time. But and ride my ankles out till they're worn, grinding the bone. But yeah, I mean, I just when I'm hurt, I think about that. But when I'm not, I'm like, I could do this forever. I love this. This is great. But realistically, I'm just hoping for another good 10, at least. And then when I get to 10, I'll be like, maybe another 10. But it's hard. I mean, this is definitely even on everyone in the band. Even aside from being a drummer, I mean, my guitar players, their wrists are going a mile a minute. My singers' vocal cords are, screaming for help after an hour set. So I think it all just depends on how we take care of ourselves, developing techniques that aren't damaging to our bodies, and just being that, I see, we all go on that hike once in our life where we're struggling to get up the mountain, and you see this older 50-year-old, 60 or even 60-year-old, maybe even 70-year-old dude in a tracksuit just blowing past you. And you're like, what does that guy got? What does he eat in the morning to just blow past me? I should be running up this mountain. You got to take care of yourself. And I think if that's the catalyst and whether I could do this for a while, it definitely it definitely put it into perspective, getting injured so early that, I can't just be I got to take this seriously. I got to, this is my one body that I know about. It's my temple. I got to take care of her. I got to love her.
Yeah. So let's talk about blast beats. They're obviously one of the main key components of deathcore drumming, along with ridiculously fast double bass chops. But so walk me through the moment that you said, I need to learn how to blast. until the moment when you realized that you had this blast thing down cold?
Oh man, well, when I joined Lorna Shore in 2012, um, I met up with Adam D'Amico, my buddy, my Jedi master, so to say, who introduced me to the world of what is extreme drumming. Because you listen to this stuff, and before you know it, it seems a bit overwhelming. You're like, I don't even know how. When you're not even like thinking about playing that kind of stuff, and you hear it, you're just like, that guy's crazy, and you just like kind of move on. You don't even bother. But I knew theory. I worked in Guitar Pro to write a lot of songs early on. So once I like seen it like written in like a musical form and understood like what is actually going on when someone's blast beating, I'm like, okay. I mean, it's a sport. You're laying out a million notes and then placing them, with different accents. But yeah, when I joined Lorna Shore and played a few shows when it came time to write music with the band, Adam explained to me like, this is the direction I want to go in. If you can't, adhere to this style, then you're not going to be the guy for us. So he burnt me a CD to put in my car. I put that CD in my car, popped it on, and the first track was Necrophagist. Second track, The Faceless. Third track, The Red Shore, Job for a Cowboy.
Wait, had you ever played it? Had you ever even attempted to blast?
No, never.
Okay.
I came from a world of, MySpace, I guess you would call it, scene core, metalcore, and pop punk, stuff with, I've talked to you about, when we were down in Nashville, just like Under Oath, like big influences on my drumming early on. Just like hit hard, have the 22-inch crash ride cymbal, 15-inch hats, the biggest drums, 13, 16, 18, 24-inch kick. And I was like, okay, we need to scale all this back to be able to make it around a kit. And so then, yeah, once I got those CDs and started to find bands on my own that I started to gravitate towards, like bands like Aegeon and Fallujah, I was just like, okay, like I found some stuff that I really like, and let me see how I can mold my playing with some more experimental, progressive, atmospheric death metal bands. And then I actually remember, I was trying to do it. I was trying to do it for a while. I'd sit in my house. I'd be like, I got it. But like, I'm just kind of flying my feet away and thinking, all right, yeah, I'm playing really fast. It's going well. On some
Wait.
drive.
So dude gives you this, he gives you the CD, and it's, like you said, it's got Necrophagist and all this stuff on it, Faceless. You listened to this and you were like, and you had never blasted before. So how long between listening to that CD and actually calling him back or meeting up with him was it when you said, yeah, dude, I got it, and did you actually have it?
Oh, I immediately said I got it, and I didn't have it at all.
Yeah.
I was in high school. I was like, this band's touring. This is what I want to do with my life. I'm just going to make it happen. Like, no matter what. I'll make a fool out of myself to be honest, like, if from my humble opinion, like, I didn't have blast beating down even up until after our first year of touring,
So
like,
why did they let you in?
I'm a great guy. You know this. I make them laugh.
Yeah.
My charm alone will keep me around in certain rooms.
Right.
They're like, this guy doesn't even belong in here, but you know what? I like him. He can hang out. But I think I had heart. I definitely dedicated myself. I sat in my room. I stopped going to school. I dropped out just to literally play drums for this band and learn this craft, because it's a full-time job playing catch up at 18 years old and never playing that style. But I went out and I bought a PDP X7 or whatever it was, that series where it's got 3 racks and 2 floors. I bought a drum rack. I just literally do what everyone does. I see what these drummers are doing and what gear they have, and I just went and bought it. And I was like, okay, these guys are triggering their kick drum. I don't even know what that is. Let me ask a few buddies. Okay. Bought the equipment and then just sat down and was like, I'm going to learn how to use this. And then first tour ever, the triggers weren't working right. I didn't even know you can edit the sensitivity. I just thought I wasn't hitting hard enough. And then I think molding my blast beats into what they are now, it just came from touring, because I always believe, like, I'm a very visual learner. So, like, watching these dudes play, like, close up, their hands, their feet, what they're doing, and talking to them, when we toured with, like, I Declare War and Carn Effects and um, Here Comes the Kraken, we, all the drummers were cool, and I was young. I was, like, 19 years old, and they all were very nice to me, and just kind of being like, hey, man, like, you can do this. Like, should look at this trick I got, the heel toe, the double strokes for the kicks. And I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I can learn that. And I think just the visual learning from touring that first tour, by the time I came back, I was already a mile further in, my playing. And then I'd say up until, our first tour was in 2015. I think 2017 is when I like really became, sort of myself and learned my playing and got comfortable blast beating. And then, I don't know, I mean, it kind of happened night and day. I mean, I started taking care of myself. I dropped a lot of vices in my life, and like drumming was the only thing I really had enjoyment from. And I just played more and more. And I know we always talk about our buddy Aaron Staconnor. Good man. Shout out Aaron Staconnor.
Yeah, great dude. Love you, Aaron.
Love you, Aaron. You're the best. But we toured together through probably all my years of like, can't play at all. He's starting to get better. And then I remember there was a moment when I was really taking care of myself, headed out on a tour, and he came out and he was like, dude, like we've been friends for a while, and like this is no disrespect, but like you're like a whole new drummer now. And that meant a lot to me because I was working very hard and I felt good. So to get that reassurance from a person I looked up to, a lot and playing just meant the world to me. And then from there on, every person I would see kind of hit me with the same thing. Like, man, like you've really been working hard. You're becoming like you're doing it. And, that was probably in about 2017, 2018. And then, the pandemic, we talked about my bass player that filled in on drums for me. He actually came to live with me, and him and I would just play in our room all day, just set up 2 kits in my house and just played. And I think throughout the course of the pandemic, I used that time because I was always touring so much. And when you're touring, you don't really have that time to like work on your drumming. You're just playing your songs, but you're not like learning other songs. You're not practicing technique. So the pandemic time was very well spent for me because I was, going on that inspiration of, this isn't the end. I want to, when this all comes back, I want to be like even better than I left off. I think that's where I'm at now, is just making it through that dark time, turning into something positive, and now I have something to show for it, just, with my skills. So, yeah, I know I kind of rambled on a bit, but yeah.
No. I mean, you took us down that. Yeah. You took us down the path. I mean, that's what I wanted. And so, but along that path, I did have a question that popped in my mind. So, how did your parents take it when you were like, I'm going to drop out of high school to learn how to blast for this metal band?
I mean, my mother, she's the greatest supporter of my father, same deal. My mom didn't really know, I just, I went on my first tour with the band, and it was just a weekend tour, barely anyone at the shows, but like that experience of being in a van with a group of people that I barely knew, but like it felt like family. It was that initial, like, I've always been in bands with friends, but I wasn't like, I didn't come into Lorna Shore being like their friend. Like, it was very business. I was like, if I'm not going to do what they want, they're going to go find someone else. And I knew the band was going to be successful in any, respect. I didn't think it was going to reach this level just because the odds of the music we play. But I came back from that weekend tour, went back to high school, and I was like, I couldn't focus. I couldn't work on my schoolwork. I just wanted to go learn songs. And then, like, I discovered a band, and it's funny, I discovered The Contortionist. Great band. Love The Contortionist. Exoplanet. And I remember I would drive to school listening to that album, and I would get so carried away, like, I didn't want to stop listening to that album. I wouldn't stop thinking about it. And that was the first metal album that I think I felt something, like, very, very overwhelmingly inspired, and being like, I want to make music like this that, like, is aggressive and heavy, but, like, makes you feel something. And that's always been a big thing for Lorna Shore. But from that moment, I just, like, I started showing up to school later and later, skipping classes, going to hang out with my band members because they weren't in school anymore, just, like, cutting out of school early to go hang out with Tom or meet up with anyone. And I think my mom caught on and was just like, I don't know. She always says that she knew in her heart that, and she likes to thank the Lord that he gave her the comfort that I was making the right decision. And as crazy as religion might seem for some people, I know whether you view it as a god or an entity or whatever it might be, like something in the universe told her to not worry and trust your son. He's going to do great things. And she always says it's, she's very thankful that she let me go down that path because, that's a big part of this. I always wanted to play music, but I care about my family. I never wanted to be a failure. And I want to make her proud and my father proud, who showed me the way and introduced me to a lot of my favorite musicians growing up. So, yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know why she let me. I don't know why it was a very kind of easy decision. I was very nervous to tell her, like, I'm not going to go to school. I'm not going to graduate. And I felt like a failure for a long time when the band wasn't doing so well. And I thought I made the wrong decision. But I don't know. It's something, it's instinctual. I don't know. You just, you got to fight for your dreams if they can't escape your mind like they did for me. Like, I knew I just couldn't do anything else with my life. I wasn't going to just say no. And just having that support, is why I'm here. Because if they didn't support me and made me stay in school, I might not be where I'm at.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I mean, dude, oftentimes drummers in particular tend to win the lottery when it comes to parents because if they like get you the gear or help you get the gear somehow, let you practice in their home, then they have the whole band come over, and then the whole band comes over to practice and eats your parents out of house and home. Like your mom just went to the grocery store and picked up all this stuff, and then bam, there's like these other 4 jackals that are just raiding the pantry and eating all the food she just bought. And she's cool with it, so like parents or drummers get lucky with their parents, for sure. I had a weird situation years back with this one artist who was pretty young and was just graduating high school. And so this artist called me up and he was like, hey man, I wanted to get your advice. So I'm getting ready to graduate. Should I pursue a career in music or should I go to college? And I was like, wait a minute. Have you asked your parents? And he goes, no. I wanted to pick your brain and see what you thought about it. And I was like, well, on one hand, I felt like, wow, okay, this kid trusts me. And on the other hand, I felt it really scared me. I was like, oh God. So whatever I tell him right now might be the direction he goes. That's really weird. So I just went down this list with him. And I'm saying this so that like anybody out there who's listening, if there's anybody that's young and they're listening and they're like, man, maybe I'll try for this too. There's a few things you don't want to pick up along the way. And so I told him this. I went down this list. I was like, okay, do you have a girlfriend? He goes, no. And I went, great, don't get one. And do you have a wife? He goes, no. He kind of was like a little incredulous at some of these questions. No, great, don't get one. Do you have a kid? Dude, like, okay, don't make one. And I said, I got a little more practical at that point. I was like, do you have any debt? He goes, nope. No credit cards? Nope. And so I just kept going down the list. I was like, you got a car note? And he goes, no, my car's paid for. I was like, great. And so I said, well, dude, my advice is pursue your career in music and don't pick up any of that stuff along the way. And then whenever you feel burned out and like you've given it your best go and it's just not happening for you, you can always go to college. But then you can do it without having all that baggage. You don't want to get painted into a corner with all these things that obligate you to go get some shitty job that makes just enough money to pay your bills, and then you're trapped. And so that's what I told him, and now he's doing great. And I don't attribute it to myself. It was like he did all the heavy lifting. I just reminded him, like, don't get all these encumbrances that'll like make it impossible for you to keep pursuing what you want to pursue.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to have a clean slate, and even if the opportunity's not there right then, if you got to make it count. If you're not going to go to school or get a job and you're going to dedicate your time to just learning drums, you got to make it count and really work towards a goal. And nowadays I think like because a lot of young drummers like talk to me and I'm like it's not about just dropping out of school and playing drums. That just I had that opportunity right then and there, so I took it. Otherwise, I would probably be on a different path. But I think and it's hard to tell anyone like what the future is going to hold. So I feel that's a heavy loaded question for someone to come to you. So like you want to believe in yourself and you want to believe in other people. And I always tell young musicians, do what you feel is right. Like you can't predict the future, but I think also the obstacles, aside from debt and like you have to be ready for, you got to fail probably 5 times. I always tell people like, oh, how'd you get so good at blast beats? How'd you get so good at drums? I was like, you got to suck for a long time.
Yeah, that's that way with anything.
And be like content, just not being where you want to be, but then figuring out constructive and good ways to get to where you want to go. And that could be, doing those boring exercises, or that could be signing up for a lesson once in a while with someone. I mean, you're never too old to take a drum lesson. I'm literally about to go take drum lessons all winter with a friend just because I want to learn more, and I think if you have that, like, it's like people going for their master's degree. It's like, why are you going back to school? It's like, well, I love learning. I want to learn more.
Oh, dude, I saw a quote one time. It said something like, all a black belt is a white belt that's stuck with it. And that's it. Like that really is it. Like, just, you're right. You just got to stick with it. But yeah, I mean, we digressed, but I have to say I admire your parents for being so supportive. That's everybody should be so lucky.
Yeah, no, like you said, to be a drummer's parents, oh, you got to be the most patient. I'm banging. I'm not even good for half my life of living with them. I started playing when I was like 7, and I can't say I was amazing, but like I would sit there and play the same beat, play the same Blink-182 song every day, like every day, sitting on that kid. So
that's funny.
Like,
all your mom heard was like just over and over.
And they're like, "When's this kid gonna learn a new beat?" Yeah. They're waiting for it, So, but it could pay off. Like I said, my mom now she listens to the Sirius radio, and we come on, and she'll be like, "I'll be driving, and I just know it's you, just because I hear those drums, and I know that's my butt. I know that's my butt playing the drums." And I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, it's nice. She didn't hear that guy in the house. She's got to pay. She don't got to pay much. She still buys her tickets because she's a mom. I tell her, don't buy a freaking ticket. But like I said, she still comes and supports, and it means a lot. Just having both her and my father just like always supporting the band, supporting me, anything I want to do in life. Being right there, and I'm lucky. Not everyone has that.
No, for sure. So I'm gonna like kind of do a 180 here, but I would be totally remiss if I didn't do a little shameless self promotion for Meinl here. And I normally don't do that, but like my experience with you and your drum tech, who's also your great buddy Dan Stankus, when you guys came down here to Nashville for this video shoot, it took me about half the day to figure it out, but it really hit me when after we were done shooting the videos and I brought you guys over here to Meinl in Nashville to visit the warehouse and check out all the cardboard. And you guys were both serious fans of Meinl. Like, it was kind of the look on Dan's face that like hit me, and I was like, whoa. And so you guys were both serious fans of Meinl well before you and I ever first started talking about working together. And so I guess at the risk of receiving some accolades for the company, how did you and Dan come to find out about Meinl? Like, when was it, and what set your serious devotion into play?
I mean, I think it was like a previous love that when we met and we were in a band together, he wasn't playing drums, he was playing bass, but he was a drummer. And then it's like me walking in to try out for his band and playing some shows, and I'm rocking the MB20 series. Back in the day, I got some stuff. He was just like, we started talking about it, and he'd be like, "Oh, dude, yeah, Meinl." Like, I'm always on the website. I'm always looking at, players' setups, how they were up there, and you would just see the list of gear they got and just buying stuff. And he worked at a Sam Ash in the drum section. So then I would go in and visit him, and we would just sit there and go to the Meinl rack of cymbals, and just start hitting around, trying stuff. And then, he had the employee deal, so I'd be buying cymbals through him. He'd be buying cymbals. He'd bring stuff for me to try. And just nerding out over it. And Dan's the type of person that gets me to love gear and like how it's made, and like he loves just from down to the material, the process. He's all in. And I'm more of just like a player and being like, this sounds good, cool. He'll explain to me like why it works for me and why it sounds good, whether it's drums or cymbals. But for Meinl, when that band disbanded and I was in Lorna Shore, I mean, I played Meinl longer than I've played any other cymbal company in this band. When I first started out, I had in Lorna Shore, I had a whole set of Meinls, and Dan was always just sending me the new products. We'd look through the catalogs. I remember when you gave us one of those catalogs, like we both hadn't had one in a long time, but it was like, yeah, like we used to like just nerd out over these catalogs and the roster and what people are doing, and I think. Yeah, it's just kind of stayed, it's just like I always say like there's so many flavors to the Meinl, overall spread, so to say. Like, there's just flavors everywhere. If you're any style of drummer, you guys make stuff that people don't even know they wanted or needed, between like the duals and the dry and the extra dry. And I just think you can really you've molded people's playing and styles of music as a whole, like between like, you got like Animals as Leaders with Garska, like that guy's music wouldn't sound the same playing on, heavy, super shiny finished brass. You know what I mean? It's definitely created, like overall just for music sonically, just like sounds that people want and cater to just the future of music. I just think a lot of what Meinl's doing is just always a step above what I think other companies are doing as far as just providing you with new tools to inspire you to play, different ways. And like obviously I have more of like the solid, shiny, glassy, brilliant cymbals, but even when I sit around and think about, okay, well, what would I want for like my own little setup, for a B kit? It's like, yeah, I have so much fun. Like me and him could just sit there all day watching mycymbal.com videos, hearing these things. I mean, looking at what the ride cymbal weighs, how many grams is this one? Oh, but this one's like a few extra, and like that one sounds different. It's beautiful, honestly. So it's definitely a big fuel for our. No, I was gonna say it's just like a big fuel of our friendship. It's just a nerd over gear and overall, like, I don't think we've ever nerded out over another company more than Meinl and Tama, to be honest. Like, both are just all we talk about.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And but I'm really curious. Like, so you said your first Meinls were some MB20s, and I mean that's serious. Those things aren't cheap. Like,
oh no,
who was it? Like, was there a drummer that you discovered that was playing Meinl that you were like, dude, I got to have that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we went over it a little bit at dinner, but just for everyone out here, I mean, a big influence for me was Aaron Gillespie, and I got that. My father worked first at Guitars. He was working with the Almost. He was making guitars for them and became friends with him. And I got the Aaron Gillespie signature Truth kit, and I was like, well, I want to be this guy, so let me go look at what cymbals he plays, and it was 24-inch this, 22-inch Byzance, stuff like that. I think my first go around was definitely Byzance series back in the day, and I remember there was like one cymbal I couldn't get because it was like a prototype, and I was like, oh man. So I just, I think one day for Christmas one year, I asked my father for like a 22-inch, giant crash ride, and got that in the mail, and I was just like, yeah, this is sick. And that was back when I was in my pop punk band, and I was just hitting around, playing big cymbals, big kit. Then when it came down to metal and getting into that world, like definitely guys like Chris Adler and just people with the MB20 stuff when I was getting to Lorna Shore. I was like, all right, well, what are these guys playing? It was a lot of MB20. Um, and just that sound it just fits the music perfectly. And yeah, I mean, I think, but definitely my intro to Meinl was 100% given to Aaron Gillespie.
Right on. Yeah, man. I dig it. I dig that, and Aaron's no longer with us, no bad blood or anything. We worked with him for years. But like I dig the lineage. It's awesome that that's what got you into us, and now here we are talking years later. So yeah, um, you talked about Meinl, or excuse me, Tama, and that was something I was thinking about. So you signed with Tama and Meinl in the last year or so, and it was actually Sam Gamble over at Tama that hit me up and told me you were interested in Meinl, and so sort of introduced us. Now, signing with Tama and Meinl the last year or so, it required changing some companies to make that happen. And so what have you like within this time frame? What have you learned about the whole endorsement thing? And what would you tell some up and coming whippersnapper who felt that they really needed to snag an endorsement deal?
I think it's like the I'm in a band, I need to get signed. It's like that sort of conversation where it's like if I just get signed, I'll make it. It's like I think it has to work for you, the company, and also like don't settle. So like, if you're in a band, you're like, oh, I'll sign to a smaller label and then I'll get to the big label. But then you're kind of locking yourself in and boxing yourself in and selling yourself a little short. Like I remember, signing with other companies. I think I mentioned I was like, I didn't think that I could have the setup I have just by selling myself short and being like, these are the companies I love. This is what I've had, but maybe I should just, stay in my lane and go to where, someone will give me some attention. But it just has to be the right time and the right place. You have to know what you're going to offer a company and not expect anything, like going into those deals. It's like, I'm not asking for anything for free. I'm not asking for anything. I'll pay for whatever I have to pay for to play gear. And especially with touring, like with touring really gave me the perspective that I need the best equipment because we're playing big shows. I need to sound good. I want my setup. I want to be confident behind my kit, and also even just the relationship you have with these people, as far as just like, you and I communicating, or me and Sam, or if there's something I need, I'm on the road, or if I'm home and I want to try something out, it's just an open communication. And I think people that are just chasing endorsement after endorsement, trying to find their home, and don't get me wrong, maybe you can get with the company you've always dreamt of, and it doesn't work for you. Um, it's just it's a big mutual understanding between you and the company of what you can also provide for them. It's not just take, take, take. That's why I loved coming down and doing those videos. And even though it felt like, I was just taking an opportunity, and I was just, very comfortable and hanging out and being set up in a studio with a fresh set of cymbals and backline kit. It's like you explained to me what the other side of the coin is, and it made the most sense as far as just like, I'm here to share my love for this company, play this company, and just kind of ripple effect to my fan base to be like, this is something I stand behind like wholeheartedly. It's not just like going on Instagram being like, hey, trying out this new toothbrush that just came out and here's a sponsored ad. Like it's definitely not that. Like I would be here, repping these companies regardless of the relationship, because it's definitely, I've realized it's just so important to be with a company that you're confident in and you love just everything that they do. Because like it just makes me happy. I'm literally sitting here looking at my drum set. I'm like, man, this is so awesome. Because it's inspiring, to sit on a kit and just have everything you want and need. And yeah, like I don't know. It's Christmas time. Everyone asks me what I want for Christmas. I can't even tell you. I got everything I need. I got all my drums. I got no cracked cymbals. You know how many tours I've played with 3 cracked cymbals? Like it's definitely nice. So I don't know. I mean, the endorsement thing is weird because a lot of people ask me like, what's the right way to go about it? And I think you just have to be a person like with Sam. You know, I've reached out to Sam many times over the years. It's been in the same room as Sam, but I never was pushy. And then we had a nice meeting. And when I say meeting, I was at Aaron Staconner's house again. Shout out Aaron. And he came by to pick up a drum, and I was just in the room, and we were just hanging out talking. I didn't talk any business. And then maybe 2-3 weeks later, I was just sitting around being like, man, that guy was really cool. You know, I'd love to just, you know, work with that guy. And also, that's the company, but like, I don't want to seem like an opportunist. And it was just mutual on both sides as far as like, yeah, let's work with each other. I would love this. So I think it has to come organically. I think it really, you can't force it. You can't, and just, you know, nowadays with drumming, like there's so many opportunities to get yourself out there, even if you're not in a band. Like we've talked about, just content online, you know, investing in yourself a lot before someone invests in you, because you have to build a brand and, you know, and do right by these companies. Like that's why it's inspiring to be with you guys, because it's like, this just makes me want to work harder, because the hard work isn't done. Now it's like, I want to be, you know, a face of Meinl and like a household name for years to come, and just to be like a part of the legacy.
Yeah. No, dude, that's awesome. I appreciate that. And I have to say it works both ways. So I definitely don't feel like I'm sitting high up on the hill in a castle and I'm looking down and granting favors to people. It's more like, how can we all pull together and work together and make each of our businesses work together, and like to the best of their abilities, but and kind of pull and do it together. And so that's why I get really inspired by cats such as yourself, who are so passionate about what you do and who you do that with and how you go about it. That when I ask you if you'll come work with us and film content, I mean, the content's, it's not just for us. Like it's for you too, as well. And I didn't want to make it seem like it was the band you too. That's why I said as well. It's for you as well. And I just I'm not really sure what I'm saying other than that I really am a firm believer in a rising tide lifts all the ships. And so any kind of endeavor I put together with an artist is not just so there's benefit for Meinl. I mean, yeah, I the food that's on my table is because I get a paycheck from Meinl, but that doesn't mean it has to be like a one lane proposition.
Yeah, I mean, this is to be in a studio setup like that with, you know, proper gear and proper video. You know, it takes a lot to put together a drum playthrough, and it's, you know, guitar playthrough is a bit more minimal. You can just have a nice stool in the middle of a room with your DAW next to you, and sometimes you don't even need all that. You could just mime it to the track and play along. But for drums, yeah, we got to mic it up. We need 12 mics. We need 3 cameras. We need all of it going at the same time to capture that true one take moment. So yeah, there's a lot to go into that process. It can get very expensive.
Yeah, for sure. And it's all worth it in the end. I mean, like I said, I'd like to make sure that anything we do, we're doing it together and it benefits us both. But uh, so I had another question for you, and this will be my last one. You made me think about this when you talked about playing larger rooms. So as you transition from smaller rooms where flurries of multiple notes translate well to bigger rooms where that same flurry of notes doesn't translate well, how do you musically handle that? We talked about this a little bit briefly when you were here, but I definitely would like our listeners to hear your thinking process about it. So as you adjust sonically, will there be any of your old school fans that call you out and cry foul about it? Because I assume that's going to mean maybe not blasting the entire time. There may be some more epic, huge hits kind of a thing. Yeah, how's that going to work?
I mean, again, organically, I mean, I think just the way the band's going, it's like, you know, we used to write for what we're doing, and when we're extreme and heavy, and we'll always be that type of band, but it's more trying to evolutionize the sound and be more for the crowd. I mean, if we're playing spaces like that, you know, it's more people's attention you have to grasp, and it's like everyone likes to talk, a lot of smack about mainstream music or bands that are a little more simple, but it's like if you see a band like Parkway Drive where everyone in the crowd can sing, whether you're of any, from all over the world, it's like the simpler it gets, the more everyone is kind of into it and can understand and be unified. So as far as simple goes, I mean, Lorna Shore will never be a simple band, but that's where our hard work starts. How can we be ourselves and mold a sound that's going to translate to a bigger crowd and also just be unified and also impactful and still extreme? Because, yeah, I mean, and it's like also like a lot of stuff my guitar player, Adam D'Amico writes, it's like, it's so beautiful, and like to just be showered over a machine gun of kick drums at all moments. Like we started to notice if I dialed that back, it's almost more impactful just to be, letting that have some shine and not playing over each other. So I just, yeah, I mean, it's our we've been talking about, what's the next step musically, and I think we're just in a different headspace. We're playing bigger venues, playing bigger things, and and bands like Behemoth and bands like even Winter Sun and Nightwish. I mean, they're extreme bands. They play a lot, but it translates well. So I think it's just taking notes from a lot of different people we've toured with, and the more you tour with bands, you take something from all those bands. If you look up to them and you see what they do. So I'm curious. I'm definitely curious to see what we can do, and just how I just want to make our music more impactful and like have more people understand the band, because I think we got a lot to say. I think we got a big story to tell. We're all big personalities. We are very normal humans. Like we said, I'm not this just tough guy. I'm just like everyone else. So is everyone else in the band. And, in extreme music, I think that gets lost just between these masks that people put on to be edgy. And I think we're just trying to display something a bit different, even with this current album, even as crazy it is, and going forward. I just want to be the biggest, best, awesomest, most relatable, amazing band that people can escape, the world from for a bit, and just that's really what is the most fun about touring, is seeing people, and even if you don't get to see them, like the beauty of social media, someone will write a post online and tag you and say how much that show meant to them, how much even just running into you for a second as I was going to the bathroom or running back to the bus to go get something. It's like if someone stops me and I can have a short conversation and show my love for them being there. That's the beauty of touring. Like I think if I didn't have all of that, I might not be so inclined to go out on tour, because like it's I as much as people tag me and write stuff, I think that in-person experience that we can share with a room of people is far more important than any amount of likes or whatever it might be online, because after a while it starts to feel, I don't know, it's just not enough. I love to be out on the road, and I think as far as just like being relatable and having the energy flow through a massive room, like you were saying, like it's just it's difficult. Like I could be playing as fast as I can, it could be mowing over people's heads, but I want that connection, and I think that connection comes with just a simpler approach. And even simpler could just be, I don't know, more straightforward, maybe to the point. I could still play really fast, but what's the goal, And I don't know. It's definitely a big thing we're diving into this winter. Records out. We're all starting to talk about what's next. So I don't know. Maybe people reference this podcast and say, "Man, he said they were going to stay true. Now they sound like Shinedown. Get this guy out of here." But I would like to stay aggressive and heavy and but just I don't know. Like I want to do something that no one's ever done before, and I think that's kind of what we're already doing. just by being in these rooms playing this crazy music.
Yeah, no, for sure. Awesome. Dude, I'm personally looking forward to hearing the evolution and referencing this podcast, and maybe 1 year from now going, damn, they did it. So that'll be cool.
I'll be putting my order for the 24-inch crash rides real soon.
Awesome. Austin, dude, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with us about everything. And yeah, man, it was super interesting, a lot of fun. Thank you.
Oh no, I had a great time. Thank you for having me on this early morning Wednesday. And yeah, no, hope everyone has a good year, good rest of the year, and stay safe.
Absolutely. Thanks, dude. Thanks for listening to Meinl Radio. If you liked what you've heard, please remember to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Give us a rating as well on Apple Podcasts, if that's what you're listening to this on. Also, go to metalhead.com or go to meinlstickandbrush.com or go to both of them and sign up for our email newsletters to keep up with everything that's going on in our Meinl world. Thanks. Take care.